Okay, today we're going to start 55. Massive Rami Barchama. Thank Hashem. We're able to learn Torah every day. By learning, we should have basic English immediately.
Amen.
Here, what's that sound? Is that rain or is that
Excuse me?
What am I hearing? Is that rain or is that something else? The faucet.
That's the water machine.
Oh, the water machine. Okay.
AC run.
Massive Rami Barchama.
Yeah.
Okay. The discussion here is a continuation of something Rav Chisda said. Chisda made a comment on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if there's a Nazir, he has to wait 30 days and cut his hair. The Nazir becomes a Metzora. So the Metzora also has to cut his hair. So what we said was that the days of the Naziris don't count for the days of the Tzaras don't count for the Naziris, and he doesn't have to restart the count from before. He doesn't have to. He counted a bunch of days before, and then he became a Metzora. He got Tzaras, leprosy, and then he gets rid of it. So he just completes the count from before. He resumes. That was the Mishnah. Rav Chisda commented on that. He says that's only by a small Nazirus, by a short Nazirus. But if it would be a long Nazirus, then the days of the Tzaras would be counted, actually, not just that it resumed. You could actually count the days that he was a Tzaras. And we explained, what does Rav Chisda really hold? That what did we mean that you can't count the days that he's a Metzora for part of the Nazirus? Because the Nazir needs to grow his hair for 30 days. Since the Metzora had to cut his hair, so he's going to need to wait another 30 days after the haircut to grow his hair as a Nazir. So if it was a short Nazirus, so it's going to be another 30 days. It's going to look like the days of Tzaras really didn't work. But Rav Chisda explains that it's not that the days of Tzaras aren't counted for the Nazirus. Really, they would be counted for the Nazirus. It's just there's a secondary law that he needs to grow his hair for 30 days. So it looks like it doesn't count. But let's say it would be a long Nazirus where he would anyways have 30 days of hair growth, and he was supposed to wait 100 days. He would be able to count some of those 100 days. He would be able to count the Tzaras as part of that as part of the 100 days, because he would still have a 30 days after. That's what we learned yesterday. Massive Rami Barchama. Rami Barchama has a question. Nazir shayatame b'safek u'muchlat b'safek. Let's say there's a Nazir that possibly is tame, and he's also possibly a Metzora. There's a doubt. Discussion how it could be a doubt if he's a Metzora, but he has two doubts over here. So listen to what happens. After 60 days, he can already eat kachim, he can already eat sacrifices. What was stopping him from eating the sacrifices? The Nazir is allowed to eat sacrifices. Well, if he's tamei, then he can't eat the sacrifice until he becomes pure. So he's got to become pure. But that only takes 7 days.
Does the Nazir eat the carbon he offers after he's a Nazir?
Yeah. At least one of them. Shlamim, I think. And the Metzora is the real issue. The Metzora is not allowed to eat from sacrifices until he becomes pure. And not only until he becomes pure, but until he brings his own sacrifices, he can't eat from other sacrifices. So the real issue here is the bringing sacrifices of the Metzora. Now, the Nazir that's Tameh also needs to bring sacrifices. But that type of sacrifices doesn't stop him from eating kachim. So the first thing is, after 60 days, why 60 days? Maybe it should just be when he becomes pure from being a Metzora. So what happens is like this. see these types in here? This is the discussion.
So nice. The whole page, right?
Oh yeah.
That's your.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets away with it. How does he do it so short? Does he have a big commentary on the next page? No. Okay. It's actually it's you have to yeah see.
Seem to know inside.
It's not very complicated. This is just like the details, a lot of details. So the way it works is like this. He says that he's going to be a Nazir. So with his luck, day one, he was a suffix Tuma, possibly he became Tame, possibly he has Tzaras. Okay.
Wow.
So now, after 30 days, if he's a Mitzayra, he's already, he's let's say he's purified from the Tzaras. The Mitzayra has to cut his hair. So he wants to cut his hair within the 30 days. We say, 1 second, you may not be a Mitzayra. You're possibly not a Mitzayra. You have to wait 30 days to cut the hair. So after 30 days, he cuts his hair. And he's accomplishing two things. Accomplishing that if he was a Nazir, then he'd cut his hair, which is good. If he was a Mitzayra, he'd cut his hair, which is good. Okay. But in order to cut his hair as a Nazir, he has to bring a sacrifice to cut his hair. You can't just cut the hair, you have to bring. So what sacrifice can he bring? So he could bring an Oila, which is one of the sacrifices, and he can make a condition that if I'm a Nazir, then there should be the Oila that the Nazir brings. And if I'm not, then this should just be a donation. Now there's a problem over here because it could be that he was Tameh. So for the fact that he was Tameh, he has to bring a sacrifice as well and cut his hair, and in order to restart. What sacrifice could he bring over there? So over there he could bring one of the sacrifices, chata sa'if. This has a special halacha that even if there's a doubt, you can bring a chata sa'if for a supper. It's a dove, a turtle dove. So then, okay, so that's where he's holding now. He cuts his hair. The rule is that a Mitzayra has to cut his hair, wait 7 days, and then cut his hair again. So after 7 days, he wants to cut his hair again. They say, no, you can't cut the hair because maybe you were a Nazir that was Tameh in the first time, and now you use your second count. You have to wait 30 days in order to recount. So by the time he gets his second haircut as a Nazir, it's already 60 days. So the second haircut as a Mitzayra, it's already 60 days. So now he got rid of the issue of eating kudshim, that he was prohibited from eating kudshim because the Mitzayra is off after 60 days. He can now eat kudshim. Now he wants to drink wine. 1 second, maybe you're a Nazir. Why? Maybe your first two haircuts were for the Mitzayra, and really you're a Nazir. So now he has to wait 30 days to cut his hair as a Nazir. The problem is that maybe he's a Nazir that's Tameh. So now he has to wait another 30 days to do the real Nazirs.
That's
But
if it's tummy.
But wasn't there the whole question about bringing the korban if he was Tamar or not?
Yeah, we had the question. But if he was a Mitzayra, then all of those days don't work for the Nazir Tameh, and you have to do it afterwards. Okay, so it goes like this. After 120 days, he's now able to drink wine. So, B'tani Allah, and it was taught on this, when do we say that it's only 120 days? That's only been Naziris Mu'etes. That's only if it's a short Naziris, because short Naziris would be 30 days each. Avil ben Naziris Bas Shana. Let's say he said, I'm going to be a Nazir for a year. So then he's going to need 4 of those. He's going to have Oichel B'Kadshim Lachash Shanim. So after 2 years, he'll be able to eat kachim, if that means he took the 2 haircuts of the Mitzayra. He can drink wine and go into a cemetery after 4 years.
Why does he quit?
Because he has 2 doubts going on. He's got to resolve each one. Let's say if he actually had all of the issues, then he was going to have to wait all of that time.
Could he give like a meal offering instead? If he can't afford like
Oh,
4 sheep?
there's one point over here where actually, for his second sacrifice, for when the Mitzvah brings a sacrifice, because we're not sure if he's a Mitzvah. So what he has to do is he has to make ownerless all his belongings. He becomes a poor person. Poor person brings a different sacrifice. When he's a Mitzvah, he brings this bird. And so therefore he'll be able to bring the bird even though there's a doubt. The other sacrifice he wouldn't be able to bring. According to one opinion, he can also bring an asham. According to the other opinion, he can't. It's complicated because of all the doubts.
Sells his belongings to a boy.
Yeah. But then he has the money. He has to actually make it ownerless and then like reacquire it. He disowns all this property. Okay. I guess he makes an announcement in front of 3 people that his property is ownerless. Huh? Right.
But you can't give it back to him.
That's not really ownerless, then he has to not give it away, right? Sort of thrift shop and take it all in.
Yeah. Be able to do that.
Yes.
Which really means that if he had a job, he had to give up his job. Because if you have a steady income, that also means that you're not an ani.
Isn't this what we do on Pesach?
Basically, we just sell our.
We sell.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you become poor. You sell, you become rich.
You can sell according to.
Sell all your pasta.
Yeah. Sell everything.
Okay. The Salkadaita. But if it would enter your mind that Rav Chisda is correct, that what was Rav Chisda's opinion? That really the days of Tzaras really count anyway. The whole issue was that you needed 30 days for the haircut. And that's why we were making a big deal about that the days don't count. But it's not that they don't count. It was just that you needed 30-day hair growth. That the days really do count. It should only be 3 years and 30 days because the last haircut wasn't really an issue. All of the days of Taras should have counted. I'm not 100% sure about this because apparently, you see, you have to accept one point over here that the Taras haircut doesn't work for the Tameh, the Nazir Tameh haircut. You have to get a separate haircut in there just for what it seems. But if the Nazir Tameh's haircut only takes place after, then since the Nazir Tameh everything falls off. So maybe the recount is only in the last 30 days, and he really is supposed to wait a year. So it's like a little problem over here.
Rav Chisda.
The Chisda is above Abaye and Rava. He's a friend of Rabba.
It's covering up.
Is the father-in-law of Rava. His father-in-law of Rami Bar Choma. Now that's an interesting point that Rami Bar Choma is asking a question on his father-in-law. Okay. I have a question on this, but that's what it says. Masav Rav Ashi. Rami Bar Choma was the first one, yeah. I think his brother also married. I think Marukva Bar Choma also married Rav Chisda's daughter, but this was the same wife.
So the Nazir took a vow for a year. Why must he wait another year after?
Well, he had 2 problems that came up.
There was a doubt. Right?
There's two doubts. One is he was possibly a Mitzvah, and the other doubt was he was possibly Tameh.
Aren't both the same thing? If he's a Mitzvah, then it's not.
Yeah, Mitzvah was Tameh, but maybe it's Tameh Mace. Tameh Mace makes him recount.
Maybe.
You never know. So he has to take the precautions of Masav Ravashi. Ravashi asks the question. Okay, this is Va'id Masav Ravashi, you have to say. And also Ravashi has a question. He quotes this Brisa. It's a Sifri, it says on the side, Parshas Nasa. Sifri is the Medrash, a halachic Medrash on Bamidbar and Devarim. It's really supposed to be Sifrei, as opposed to the Sifra, which is the Medrash on Vayikra. This is the Medrash on Bamidbar and Devarim, and over there it has the section of the Nazir. So it says, Ainli Eli Yemei Tuma Sheina Elei Min Aminyan. I would only think that the days that he's impure because of Tamei Meis, that don't count. Yemei Chalutei Minayin. How do you know that he can't count the days when he is Chalutei means that when he's a Mitzayra, when he's actually a Mitzayra. How do you know that those days don't count? So we're going to do a comparison.
Mitzvah is always from Suras.
Mitzayra is Tzaras, and the Tumah meant Tamei Meis. I know that a Tamei Meis, those days don't count. He has to recount. But what about if he's a Mitzayra, does he have to recount? It says Vidinhu. Look, it's logical. You made Tumah Megaleach, Umevi Karban. If he's Tamei, he has to shave his head, bring a sacrifice, and recount. So therefore, you may Chaluta, you Megaleach, Umevi Karban. And if he's a Mitzayra, he also has to shave his head and bring a carbon. See, there's so much in common. Probably the next thing is also in common. Just like if he was Tamei, those days, the original days don't count. Also, the days of Tzaras also shouldn't count. See, we've matched it up perfectly. That if he's Tamei Meis, if he's Tamei to a corpse, he has to restart. So too, if he's a Mitzayra, he has to restart. The Gemara says like. It's not so. Over there, I'm sorry, I was talking about restarting. It wasn't really the restarting that was the issue. Talking about, can the days of Tumah be part of those, all the days that are required for his Naziris? So now we're talking about, 1 second. But if he was Tameh, then he has to restart the count. Over there, he doesn't have to restart the count. That wasn't our question if we have to restart. The question was if you can use those days or if they're just blank. So we're saying that we wanted to say that you can't use those days because we're going to compare it to Tumah. Said 1 second, you can't compare it to Tumah because by Tumah you can't even use the days that were Tahar before he became Tameh. Right? He was Tahar, becomes Tameh, and now he has to recount everything. Even the days before fall off. So by Tzaras also, he was Tahar, gets Tzaras, and now he's Tahar. So we know that he can count the days from before together with his new days. What about the days in the middle? We wanted to say, well, the days in the middle should be similar to Tumah. We say no, because the days before were not similar to Tumah. So also these. The Gemara says, Amrit Kal V'Chaimer. We could say it's a Kal V'Chaimer. Let's take a look. We introduce a new scenario. Let's say there's a Nazir that's in a cemetery. Remember, we had a case like this. Not a Nazir in a cemetery. There's a fellow that's in a cemetery, and he accepts on himself that he's going to be a Nazir. So his Naziris only start once he leaves the cemetery.
I think we spoke about this before.
Yeah.
You can't even make this Nazir in the first place.
Yeah, well, we said that the Naziris doesn't start until he leaves.
Okay.
We don't say that he has two Naziris now. He has a Tamei one and a new one. He actually doesn't have anything until he leaves. So, Shasari Rala Teglachas Naziris. That here is really fit for a haircut as a Nazir because he was never a Nazir beforehand that now he broke it by being in a cemetery. We just postpone the beginning of the Nazirus until he leaves and becomes tar, right? Yeah, makes sense. So if that's the case, Nazirus ain't Eilim and a minion, but the days that he was in the cemetery don't count. You may chaluta yishain sari relata glachas Nazirus. Piece of mitzvah that here is not fit for piece of mitzvah and accepts on himself to be a nazir. That here is not fit to be a haircut of a nazir because he has to cut it off as a mitzvah. Like kolshkein. So is it not a kal v'chaimer that we shouldn't be able to use the days of Nazirus? Okay, and we shouldn't be able to use the days of Mitzaras for the Nazirus. I only know this when he's actually Tameh from Tzaras. Yimei Sefira Minayin. How do you know the days when he's counting? Yimei Sefira means that he has to wait the 7 days during the period of purification. It says Vidino. It should be the same thing. It's logical. When he's Tameh, he needs to get a haircut afterwards. Tameh from Tzaras, right? If he has leprosy, he has to get a haircut afterwards. And when he counts again, he has to get another haircut. After Sifrei, he also has to get a haircut, right? He has to Mitzvah has to get 2 haircuts. So if the halacha by one is that days don't count, so the halacha should be the same by the other. Just like we just said that the days that he's Mitzvah don't count. After Sifrei, also the days that when he's in the purification process also shouldn't count for the days of Nazirus.
But you don't start counting until after 30 days.
No. By the Mitzvah, you don't need the hair to grow. The only reason why we needed the hair to go 30 days in the last one because we thought maybe he was a Nazir also. So we had to instead of waiting 7 days for the Mitzvah to cut his hair, he had to wait 30 days before. But over here we're just talking about
Just the Mitzvah.
the Mitzvah is just 7 days. The Mitzvah would
Not a Nazir, just
a Mitzvah, a regular Mitzvah would just wait 7 days and cut his hair. He cuts his hair once, wait 7 days and cuts his hair again. So here also, he's going to cut his hair a second time. So we say, well, just like the first time, just like when he's absolutely tameh, we say that those days of tzaras.
So it's just one moment.
Coffee time. Okay. So just like when it comes to the tzara, the days of tzaras when it's really tameh, those days don't count for the Nazirus. So too, after Sifra, also the days when he's in the purification process, the next 7 days don't count. Now let's go to before the tzaras. Before he became a Mitzvah, he was quarantined. What about those days? This is when we were checking him out to see if he's going to become a Mitzvah. So Afimei Askerikain, but didn't Nisan, and well, also logical because Chalot Mitami Mishkav Moshe. Someone really has tzaras. If he sits on a bed or if he sits on something, it becomes so tummy that it becomes just as tummy as he is. And also, if someone is quarantined, that same tumah applies. If he sits on a bed or he lays on something, so it becomes just as tummy as he is. So if that's the case, that those days have such tumah, so if you say that the days that he's confirmed as a mitzvah, you can't count it for Nazirus. Also, the days of quarantine shouldn't be counted. Amrit we say no. Maybe carbon. It's totally different. When he's a confirmed mitzvah, he has to shave his head and bring a sacrifice. And because of that, that's why you can't count those days for Nazirus. But the days of quarantine, that he doesn't need to shave his head because could be he'll be let free, and they tell him that sorry for the mistake. We thought you were going to become a mitzvah, but you didn't. So there's no carbon and there's no haircut. So therefore, the days of Hesker, the days of quarantine, will work for the Mitzvah, will work for the Nazir. But so far, where we're holding now is the days of actual tzaras. Wow, mamei. Oh, beautiful. Oh, this is nice.
What is it?
It's an old.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Oh, it's gonna ripen. You see how it's gonna ripen? You see it's orange.
What is
It's
it?
gonna rise.
What is it?
This is mamei. And then if it has a little orange, then it will ripen well. If it's green, it will never ripen.
Much.
Very good. Have you had it?
No idea.
How long will it take to ripen?
It'll take a few days. It'll take on Wednesday at around 2:00.
Quarantine here.
That's what
I would have liked
What
to see a video of you
Mordechai,
climbing the tree and
Leslie.
getting it.
Yeah.
when he jokes like that. Says Wednesday at about 2:00.
Is it a tropical fruit?
Okay, so you have a tree.
Next time, jackfruit.
It's good. So
We'll have a moment.
oh, with a siyum, I thought you'd want to make a separate siyum, or do you want to wait for Erev Pesach? Oh yeah, that's it. There you go.
An incredible fruit. Rich and creamy texture and tastes a lot like.
So
Oh, mama.
Yeah.
You know, it's ripe when you see a little orange.
it will ripen.
You figured it out.
So im amrit me chaluta she can chaluta in teglachas maybe carbon lefika chein. Okay, then me asker shein time maybe carbon lefika yalamin. Mikan amru. The conclusion of this whole sifri that Rav Ashi quotes to us, where all of this was a very long brisa medrash that's being quoted in order to ask a question on Rav Chisda. But we went through this whole discussion, and then at the end we're going to come with the punchline. This is Mikan Amar. From here they said, Yemei Sifrai v'Yemei Gamrai, the days of his counting, and the days of his Gamrai means the days that he's actually tamei. Ein Oilei Min Aminyan. Those that when he's Mitzayra tamei, has leprosy. Those days don't work for the Nazir. Abu Yemei Hazava Azava Beheskeri Shal Mitzayra. But Azav and Azava in the days of the quarantine of the Mitzayra, Harei Elo Oilei. Those days do count for the Nazir. For if he had a whatever size Nazirs he had, those days could be counted towards the completion of the Nazirs. Katani Mias, whatever the case is, Mias is like nevertheless, it was taught. Loi im amrit be made to mashakain mevatel b'masakaidmin time of mechalute. I'm not sure if that's exactly what the Gemara wanted to quote. I think what it wants to quote is that we said that the days of the when he's confirmed that it doesn't count. The days that are confirmed don't count towards the Nazirs. B'mai, what are we talking about? Ilema ben Naziris Mu'etnes. If we're talking about a small Naziris, that means a 30-day Naziris. I'll be in Gidl Sar. What are you telling me? That that possibly the days of his confirmed Naziris, that it's possibly you would be able to use it. How could you use those days? You have to shave the head afterwards, and then you don't have enough time afterwards to grow it if you're going to use those days. Elalav ben Naziris Meruba must be talking about that you're dealing with the longer Naziris, which means that you would have time. And the Gemara concludes that those days don't work, even though we're dealing with the longer Naziris. If it's a longer Naziris, we see that the days of Mitzayra don't count towards the Naziris. Shmami, no, we see from this a big question on Rav Chisda.
Is the shaving identical in both? So,
Yeah, this is 0.
The Nazir only shaves his head. The Mitzvah, I think, has to shave his whole body.
the
But either way,
shaving
the shaving of the head
comes
is
in.
him.
I was wondering if one left enough according to Shita that,
Oh.
that.
Okay. Is Chaim in town? No. Okay. No, because the next Gemara would be of interest. Oh, really? Okay. Amar Rabbi Eliezer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua. We have a new Mishnah here. Rabbi Eliezer says in the name of Rabbi Yeshua. Now, on the side of my Gemara, it says it's Rabbi Eliezer. I like that better. Because Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Yeshua's friend. A little bit odd that you should say something in the name of Rabbi Yeshua. You would say in the name of Rabbi Yechim Zakkai, or one of his teachers. But here, if it's Rabbi Eliezer, then it would be Rabbi Eliezer ben Shemua. Rabbi Eliezer ben Shemua is a student of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva is a student of Rabbi Yeshua. So Rabbi Eliezer heard from Rabbi Yeshua, or he says something in the name of his teacher that heard from Rabbi Yeshua, and it's good
So
enough.
which Rabbi Eliezer?
I think instead of Rabbi Eliezer, I think it's supposed to be Rabbi Eliezer. On the side of my Gemara, it says something over here. Girsas Ksav Minchen. I have the Munich manuscript adjusted to Rabbi Eliezer. It's the more reliable one, I think. That's the Dikdukei Seifrim's big point. Although they challenge the Dikdukei Seifrim, they think that he didn't get everything correct. There's a lot of
Think about the movement, it's the oldest.
right.
Right?
I think so.
Who knows if that was accurate?
There's a guy that lives in the neighborhood. He's working on a manuscript.
You what?
There's a guy who lives in the neighborhood. He works on this manuscript called the Kaufman manuscript. I don't know anything about it, but I saw him at some Saturday. He was telling me about doing different Gemaras that fit according to this. Things fit much better because one little letter changes like a whole shot in the Gemara. So, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer, Mishum Rabbi Yeshua, Kol Tuma Min Amei Shenazir Megaleach Le, any impurity that a Nazir would have to shave his head. If he's that impure, then Chayav Alal Bias Mikdash. Then if a person would walk into the temple with the same impurity, he would have that prohibition of coming into the temple impure. And if he's not impure enough for the Nazir to have to shave, then Ein Chayav Alal Bias Mikdash. Then he won't contaminate the temple. Amar Reb Meir says, Leitezu Kalam and Asheretz. Even a sheretz can't go into the base of Mikdash. Someone tell me sheretz can't go into the base of Mikdash, and now you're telling me that he needs to have like the severe tumah that only a nazir, would become tameh, would have to shave his head. So now it really fits with Rabbi Eliezer, because Rabbi Eliezer and Reb Meir are contemporaries. Well, the Gemara now says Rabbi Eliezer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua Gamarla. He learned it from Rabbi Yeshua. Mishum Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamal Gamarla. He learned it from Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamal, not Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua is really Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. He was the friend, Asher Yeladite. He was the friend of Rabbi Eliezer, the student of Rabbi Yechim Zakkai. Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamal, someone else. Tanya, thought in a brisa. Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Here, this is where they adjusted it. Kishalachti la Daskia. Matzasias Rabbi Yeshua ben Peser Reish. Apparently that's his name. Does he have any comment on that?
Yeah.
What
It
does
says
he say?
apparently this is from a Greek name that was Hebraicized.
Hebraicized.
Hebrew says.
Oh.
Oh, doctor. Good.
Okay. Other versions of the Gemara read the Torah. The Greek name in question is possibly Patrus,
Oh.
meaning of the father, or Patros, meaning one's father's brother.
Wow. Okay. So, Rabbi Eliezer says he went to Ardaskia. I don't know where Ardaskia is.
In the north.
It's in the north. Okay. What is that, like Turkey or something?
near the town of Tabin, or Tibon, in northern Israel near Haifa.
Oh, okay. Latasias Rabbi Shua ben Pesach Yeshiv Don Lefnei Reb Meir Balacha. He was sitting and saying some teachings in halacha. Kol tuma min hameisha nazir megaleach la. Yes, Reb Meir was in our desk, yeah. No, Reb Meir was in Asya. Remember that? Reb Meir was anyway. Yeah, I don't know if it means Asia. It maybe means Asia Minor. Turkey or something. So any tuma that the Nazir would have to shave, then if a person entered into the temple, he would have that prohibition. And if a Nazir doesn't have to shave, then he wouldn't be impure. Okay, that's what Rabbi Shua Bar Mama was teaching. Amalai, Rabbi Meir responded, Al tezu kalam and misheret. There should be no less than a sheret. Whereas sherets, someone Tommy sherets can't go into the temple. Amarti lai. This is Rabbi Lazar. Klumat the Baki Rabbi Shua Bar Mama. Do you know where Rabbi Shua are you familiar with Rabbi Shua Bar Mama? Amalei hein. This is what Rabbi Shua Bar Mama said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, that called Tamam and Amisha Nazir Megalech called Tamam and Nazir Megalech. So this the person that was saying it was Rabbi Shua ben Pesach, that was saying it in the name of Rabbi Shua Bar Mama, in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, but he didn't say that. So now he says it. So heavy mishum Rabbi Yeshua Bar Mama Gamela. You see that this wasn't really in the name of Rabbi Yeshua. This was first in the name of Rabbi Yeshua Bar Mama, who said it in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, which is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanani. Amro, they said, Shmamina kol shmaitza de mesamra beit lasa. Any halacha that's said over by three people, like there's a first generation, a second generation, a third generation. Kadmaya basra yamrinan. We only mention the names of the first one and the last one. We don't mention the names of the people in the middle. You don't get their name mentioned. Amar Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak. Yeah, if you got to go through Shas, analyzing if this really works. I'm sure there's many times where you use the people in the middle too.
Maybe
It's
later.
Jewish. It's cut out the middle. Okay, you can have it back. Bro.
Okay. We have this also in a Mishnah. Amar Nachum Alavler. Nachum Alavler said, Alavler is a scribe, right? So I received from Rab Miyasha, that's received from his father, Shekibel min Azugas, that received from the sages that were called peers, Shekibel min Avim, they received from the prophets. Halach al-Moshe Misinai, that heard from Moshe. Bezereya Sheves v'chardal, someone that plants dill or mustard, Vishnayim v'shleishim mekaymis, in three different patches, Shneisin peyah mikolech vecha, that I have to give peyah from each and every one. Well, the ilu Yeshua v'kalev lekachashiv, but it doesn't mention Yeshua and Kalev. It skips that generation. You see, you're allowed to skip middle generations. It went from the Zugais to the prophets to Moshe Rabbeinu. What about Yeshua and Kalev? You see, in the middle, you can skip the people in the middle. Yeah, I guess every third. Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Like most.